my tradition of being a good leader, we're going to do it two ways. So I'm actually going to do two introductions. The introduction I'm going to do when I stand over here is for those of you who are interested in the statistics and the business side of things, and the history and the data, and all of that kind of information. And then I'll go over there a little bit, and I'll do a more Findhorn kind of introduction. David has been a shopkeeper in one form or another for probably most of the last 20 to 25 years. He started in Wales, he kept a shop in Jersey, he's also been the manager or the director of various kinds of shops in Canada and in the United States as well. And 5 years ago, he came to Findhorn. For the first year that he was here, he managed the bookstore as part of our Phoenix, and then took on managing the shop overall. By tradition, he's moved into companies or shops that were not working with the highest of energies, according to him. And by tradition as well, he tends to turn them around and then moves on to the next step in his own path. That is what he did here. When he took over the Phoenix, we were turning over about 200,000 pounds a year. And this year, the expected turnover is about 1.2 million pounds. So he's done that in 5 years. He's also transformed the inside of the shop and has worked to create an atmosphere on many levels that is conducive to people receiving the services that they go looking for there. So, over here, David is also a man of many parts, and to use the word eclectic, I think would be a limitation on the gentleman. He has a passion for, while a lot of this week has been about how to bring spirit into business, David has spent the last 5 years bringing business into spirit. He challenges us constantly as a community to put our spiritual principles into practice in business. Sometimes that makes him somewhat difficult to be around because he asks difficult questions, and he challenges us to put our money where our mouth is as shoppers and as a community. There are times when he is irritating to the point of wanting to tear your hair out, and there are times when he is lovable to the point where all you want to do is hug him. I hope you enjoy him. David Hoyle.
Right, thank you. So Karuna was talking about comfort zones earlier. I'm way out of my league here. So it's very definitely a first. And I'm very privileged to be here amongst such a illustrious and inspiring group of people and presenters. I'm very privileged to be here at Findhorn too. What I'm going to talk about this morning is right livelihood and shopping. I'm a shopkeeper, you know. I never asked to be a shopkeeper, I can tell you that. I was living in a dingy, drug-ridden squat in some muddy field in Wales, having fled the city, as many did in the late 60s. And something happened. Someone came by that squat, and they were a follower of Guru Maharaji, which was the Divine Light Mission at that time. And a week later, you know, the beard had gone, the long hair had gone, and I was working in a Whole Food shop in Aberystwyth. Now the hair's come back and the beard's come back, but the Whole Foods are still there. And I believe essentially that if we look at right livelihood, it's something around that it's the right life for us. That when spirit comes in, whatever form, that what seems to follow then is an opportunity to express that spirit. And if I looked at the big picture now and said, that this would be my life, working at the till, unloading shelves and all so on, I said, no, I want a bigger calling. I want to do more than this. But in fact, it is an absolutely profound place to be for myself, and it has filled my life. And as hopefully we'll show during the talk this morning, every aspect of me is challenged and inspired and stimulated and irritating and opinionated and all the other things. It's a very rich life doing the sort of shopkeeping that I've been privileged to do. And hopefully this morning I'll share some of that with you. So, I just pray the technical stuff will work. So, recent surveys, 80% of the UK population claim to believe in God, and 70% claim that shopping is their favored leisure activity. So I'm in the right business. Right. Now, the Phoenix should be about 10 times the size of Marks and Spencer's, if this was actually true. And I would be a very rich man, and I'd be in the Bahamas somewhere with all the others. What happens, unfortunately, is that as a number of people have been speaking so far, and it's mainly been, people from government and people from larger organizations, and they've spoken about this thing of leaving yourself at the door, leaving your spirit at the door when you're going to work, and then you have to become somebody else. And often you become someone that is not necessarily true to who you really are. What is also true, if these statistics are right, is that when you go shopping, you often leave your spirit at the door. And when you go in, and when we go in, and believe me, if I say you, I mean me. We're not talking about right or wrong in this sense, or good or bad, but let's hold a right as in right livelihood, something that exists beyond the judgments and the opinions, even though I am very opinionated, as my friends will know. And what I'd like to do during this talk today is just look at how, in fact, shopping, for me, and of course where I am, I'm slightly biased, is that shopping should be part of our spiritual life. That when we go out with that money, that we are conscious, that we consider what it is that we do, what it is that we buy, where what we buy comes from, even where we buy it, and that we make those choices consciously and we think about it. And that doesn't make anything right or wrong. Conscious may be to say, and I'm obviously going to speak around the UK, supermarkets fine, supermarkets aren't good or bad. Supermarkets sell the product that you, the consumer, want. That's their job. I think all business, we too often look at business as something that's imposing upon us. But where we are now in terms of the world is that for the first time, we're probably looking at the fact that 50% of all production is geared towards the consumer. That we're getting to that point, it's already there in America and it's getting there in Western Europe. So in fact, you and I are the biggest business in the world. We are the biggest. We dwarf IBM, we dwarf General Motors, we dwarf anyone. So in fact, if business is there to give us what we want, then what we choose changes the world like that. The world changes. Business is not stupid. The businesses that are making the changes, whether it's Levi Jeans or whether it's Body Shop, whoever it is, the smart ones are all picking up. It's been difficult. Inner-directed customers are a very hard category to pin down because you don't know what they're going to buy. Because they're not going to believe your advertising. They're going to probably be appalled by your architecture and your flashy gimmicks. They're going to search for something more real. So it's much more challenging as a business, but then most people are in business because they like challenges. Certainly for me, if I look at how I am as a business, it's a challenge. That's a real thing. Each time we bring something into the store, is this going to sell or isn't it? Am I right or am I wrong? It's a fascinating process, and I love that logistics. And so if we just look at the Phoenix, we carry around 20,000 products. Comes from, I don't know, we deal with probably 200-300 food suppliers, God knows how many publishers, music and so on. We serve probably 150,000 customers a year. It's the food that brings down the turnover, I can tell you. And we have to work very hard, all those six pounds. If you're on the till in the Phoenix in the summer, you're probably serving 100 customers an hour. It's very intense. And yet, what we stock in the Phoenix now, you may say, well, why if you're a Whole Food, why if you had these aspirations to Whole Foods, why if this is a spiritual community, why is there all these Mars bars, or why is all these works of fiction, or this controversial music, why don't you only sell Taizé tapes? What's Tamla Motown doing in there? Why are you selling jazz? Because that's what our customers want also. And so part of this is, we have, the Phoenix itself has many roles. We're a community shop, and in that sense, we respond to the wants and needs of the community. We have other aspirations, as you'll see, but that's what our business is about. We've always tried to be true. We're not going to pretend that this is a community that only eats organic brown rice. It doesn't. It eats just the same kind of food as many of you. It's not only a community that listens to Taizé every day. It likes other things. It's a rich community. And hopefully one of the things that people really appreciate about Findhorn is that it's real. In fact, these are real people struggling. We come here mainly out of a sense of struggle, looking for answers. And what I like about it here is that the process carries on, that you can be who you are here. You're encouraged to be what you could be, always. And we as a shop follow the same way. So let's begin our journey through. I live here in Britain. I'm sorry, I don't know much about the Icelandic market. But, so, this is actually, probably those that saw the Titanic thing there, they will be glad that, in fact, we make chips instead of ships. But the reality is there is an appalling chance, and to me it is absolutely appalling, that McDonald's will be one of the largest employers in Britain by the millennium. We're talking 60, 80,000 people whose lives are to fry burgers in those ghastly, sorry, McDonald's. Yeah. I could go on. I don't have to say anymore. And it's not around whether burgers are right or wrong, but that's what they have to do all day. That's it. That's what we, the consumer, because in fact, we're seeing for many people, we talk about right livelihood. 2.5 million people are unemployed. They would give anything for any sort of livelihood, right or wrong. Again, that's what we're creating. That when we're looking at right livelihood, I think essentially we must also be very practical. That people need to work, people need livelihoods. As they often say, if you're going into the starving, fine, teach them to fish, but first they need fish, so they have enough strength to go fishing. So what's it about, this right livelihood business? Yeah, so I will assume you know what we're talking about. To me, I think a right livelihood business clearly must be sustainable. And we're not just talking about an ecological sustainability. I think it must be something that's needed. That we actually go into businesses now, if it's to be right livelihood, that are actually wanted, that are needed. That's part of the gift of spirit, is that it guides us into this is what needs to be done. Not as a should, but it is right. This is our great gift, that we can bring whatever it is that we do to the world and infuse that work with spirit. Clearly, I don't have to go on around the ecological, environmental issues around sustainability, but I think that if we respond first within ourselves to that need, the rest is taken care of. As we saw with Osho before, take care of your own consciousness, and I think the rest will sort itself out. I think the same is true when we look at the businesses that we are going to create or that we are creating. I think right livelihood, we need to be informed. Often it's tempting, that world, what a crazy place it is. Let's just cut it off. We'll go to our sanctuary, we'll make a sanctuary in a house, we'll go to our piece of work, whatever it is, and we're going to try and shut that world out. I don't think that is what is asked of us. I do think that we have a responsibility to actually know what we go on. So when we talk, we know what it is we're saying. For me as a shopkeeper, I want to know. I want to know Tesco's turnover. I want to know how many people are employed in the food industry. I want to know what happens when this plant closes down and what it does to its people. I want to know what happens when Tesco's flies in parsnips from Australia in the middle of the English parsnip season. I want to know, why is that going on? I want to know that they've done it. I want to know what's happened to the English parsnip farmers, so that then not only am I coming from a place of spirit, but that spirit is grounded. That spirit is grounded in the day-to-day aspects of my business. I think part of right livelihood is that it's inclusive, that everybody is welcome. For the Phoenix, I think our intention every day is that every single customer is welcomed, whoever they are, wherever they come from. And so we have and I'm sure he won't mind, but we have a customer that is an alcoholic. Comes in every day, buys 8 to 12 cans of McEwan's beer, goes back, drinks it, comes back the next day, buys it again. On one hand, we can take a position, we won't sell to him. He has no place in this right livelihood. We're very spiritual here. Drinking McEwan's is an ungodly activity. If it was organic beer, we might be more enthused. But what I know is we're probably the only people that speak to him every day. If he didn't come to us, no, we know his name, we know what he likes, we help him, we carry his beer if he's too drunk to carry it. It's his responsibility where he is. Our responsibility is to love him. Our responsibility is to recognize him as a human being every time he comes in the shop. And that is our right livelihood, and that is our inclusiveness. I was wondering how to start the talk before, and I was going to start in a different way, but now seems an appropriate time. I had a letter from my mother a few days ago. Now, my mother writes every week. I don't know if any of you have got mothers like this. But every week I get this note, and, they went shopping and went here. Well, shopping's good, I guess. And what she says here was amazing. Normally she just tells me what they've done and how the neighbors are and Auntie Marjorie and so on. This letter was a story. She went into a very large store in Bournemouth on the West Coast towards the end of the day last week. And as she got to the checkout, she passed through, got her groceries. And after I paid, and I'll read just what my mother said. I paid for a few things, and after I paid the girl said, "I would just like to tell you, you're the first customer today to say thank you." What on earth are we coming to? First one. This girl's probably served 1,000 customers that day. We talk about the responsibilities of business. We talk about, for me as a business, greeting, and everyone's been trained. We've gone the American way, have a nice day, all of this stuff. You as consumers, you have a big part to play in this. What sort of life is that? What sort of life? And I'm sure that story could be repeated thousands and thousands and thousands of times. So it's a two-way thing. But because we're encouraged as a place and as a business around this livelihood, then that certainly would never happen to me. In fact, our main problem is getting our customers to shut up. We've got a long queue of people and someone's telling you about their chakras or the person going, no, and so very much, it's very much that certainly one of the challenges as we go into is, how you stay present in a busy business, how you acknowledge every person, everyone is looked in the eye, everyone is greeted sincerely, and then you move on. I was very much moved by the man of trees. In a sense, being a shop is the same thing. We do the same thing every day. We order goods, they arrive, we unload the lorries, we put them on the shelves, we sell them, we order them again. It is a very Zen practice. Anything that we do is that thing. It can be done with consciousness and can be our right livelihood. Values, yes. Spiritual values, human values, economic values, ecology values, and sometimes the values collide, as we'll go into a bit later on. But clearly we need values, and clearly we need to embody those values, and clearly those values must be an expression of who we are. And to be true to our values, there's no point in pretending. I think that being real, too often for me, there are some very, very fine New Age shops around. But sometimes we make the mistake of being too precious. That what our business, what we represent it as, is not necessarily really and truly and deeply who we are. And somehow you feel uncomfortable with that. Or you go, Jonathan mentioned on Saturday night, the environmentalists who are absolutely concerned with the environment. And yet everything else, there's no value. And in their own lives, they're not taking care of themselves. I'm sure we all know those. That we must be congruent. Freedom, free-range eggs, of course. Free people. We know the implications already. Dana was talking about Shell. Clearly, the things that we buy can have a very, very, very serious consequences for the rest of the world. People can die because of what we buy, in the sense of that so often, power is around money, and money is around trade. And the things that we buy, we see, and I'm not I don't have a great political understanding of, say, Nigeria, but I know somewhere when I read those stories that this is over one person against another person wanting this trade. And that if Shell knew that no one would buy their products from now on, absolutely no, they would never dare do some of the things that they've done. And it's not just Shell. So we have a thing around making people free, that in what we buy, we allow people dignity, that we allow people to be paid for what they do. Training shoes, what a great one. We'll be appalled, we see the Nike and the Adidas and all the rest. And yet those of you that have read the papers recently would know the horror that lies behind those 75-pound trainers. The cramped work sharps, the hands, the fingers down to the bone, blah, blah, blah. We know it. And yet, how do we bring that consciousness when we go out there? Because it's too big. And so we need to be very practical. We can, as individual consumers, and I'm not asked, I would never say, from tomorrow we change everything. It's too big for any of us. That would be in the too much on Karuna's chart. But we can start. We can deal, with one thing. And we'll go into this a little later too. We can make small steps. But unless we're informed, we can't make those steps. So I do think we have a responsibility to be informed. Freedom is also around, I think, not having rules and regulations that are so absolute that we never dare stray from them. There's a great story from America. There's a wonderful company there called Whole Foods Markets, who have been an outstanding force for organic food in the world. In fact, their turnover exceeds, I think, certainly the whole UK organic food industry and probably half of Europe. And they started from one small store in Texas. And there's a story there that a few days after they opened, an old hippie came in. I say old hippie as I was one, so I don't feel I'm being disrespectful. And he came in with his food stamps to buy some milk. In America, they used to have those jugs, like a gallon jug with the two things that used to hold like that somehow. And he got his milk and he went out the store. And he came back about 3 minutes later. And he told the checkout girl that he'd smashed the bottle against a lamppost. And could he have another one? They said, sure. Gave him another gallon of milk. Certainly 3 years ago, the guy was still shopping with them and has probably spent $100,000 in their store because so as a business or as a human being, I think that part of what we do as right livelihood is that we have our rules, we set our guidelines, and we must respond in the moment, in the now, to what it is, particularly that our hearts call us to say. I drive my colleagues mad with this, We make these agreements and set the rules, and then someone comes and we change it. You can't change it, You've told us how to do it this way. So it's very challenging. It's not easy to be free. As human beings, it's much easier where we're told what we have to do. We work for a business, they give us the guidelines, and this is who we are. But, we're not robots. And too often what business does is it tries to cram us into that and we become afraid. So I think this freedom is probably, I can't stress it enough, and it may create chaos. And I think chaos is part of having real businesses, is that sometimes it's chaos and sometimes it isn't. And we move with that. That it is, if it's perfect all the time and if it's orderly all the time, there's something wrong. As people who look at my desk will see, I enjoy the chaos thing. Sense of style, also important, I think. We've got to face it. We're in a consumer age. We're in a sophisticated consumer age. Now, the Phoenix has its own style. I tear my hair out at it. Look at the floor and the entranceway and there's boxes everywhere. Oh, my God. But that's our style. In fact, in a curious way, and it is curious, people like it because there's no pressure. They know they can stay in the Phoenix all day long. We find them in the little corners at 6 o'clock. And there's a guy sat there all day reading a book, and it's fine. That's our style. And that suits who we are. That suits who I am, because if I go into a shop, that's what I want. I want help when it's wanted, and I want to be left alone. And yet, there are very few shops where you could spend all day in there sitting in the corner and be perfectly happy. And I think that's part of why the Phoenix is working, is that our style is congruent with who we are as people. Passion, we've spoken about it. How passionate are we about our businesses? As most people that know me know, I love football. I'm a football fanatic. Anyone wants to talk football, I'm your man. When I go, partly it's a cultural thing. I was brought up in North London, and the only time I ever saw my father was going to football. That's the only time. And so those moments, something bound up that, go to football, father, intimacy. There's a little story there, but go on. But those people are passionate. My team won the FA Cup. There are 150,000 people out on the streets to welcome them back. They're passionate about their team. We saw the situation in Belgium just on Sunday. 325,000 people were on the streets. They said, we've had enough. We're seeing, if you heard the news this morning, the wife of the headmaster, who's saying, we've had enough guns. That's it. No more guns, no more knives. I'm going to do something about it. So what do we care about? Now, what is it that we as individuals can go out and express as our whole being? What would we die for? Many people, we talk about spirituality, and it's very nice. We come into the Universal Hall and we sing Taizé songs. It's very moving. And on one level, on a physical level, it's easy here. But supposing you were told, if you sing that Taizé song again, you're going to jail. If you sing that Taizé song again, we're going to kill you. If you go into the square and sing that Taizé song, we're going to run you over with a tank. It gets a little harder. So part of what it is, I think, is and it's different. I think a lot of what we're called for now, particularly in the West, it's not around a Rwanda or wherever else it is. I think a lot of our courage is an inner courage. And I think our shopping has a lot to do with it. Shopping is not very glamorous. But there is a sort of courage that says, I'm going to pay 50p for that organic carrot rather than 10p for that commercial one. That's a courage, because usually people in right livelihood, people that are trying to imbue spirits in their lives, don't have much money. Certainly that's true here. So there's a quiet sort of courage that says, my pension, what am I going to do? I'm not going to have enough. That says, and with all that, if we create our own reality, if that's really true for us, and if we believe that what we are doing is right, then how are we going to express it at the checkout? Vision without task is dreaming. Task without vision is drudgery. A vision and a task can change the world. I was found on a church stone in 1730, I think, somewhere or other. I've sort of carried that around with me for, 20 years, I guess. It's part of right livelihood. I'm getting in trouble here with, what do I do? We'll move on quickly. So, whoops. Yeah. I don't expect you to remember all this. When I went to work for Livestream, they're a huge natural food company in Canada. The president of the company had come from General Mills. And I remember on my first day there, somehow we got chatting and he said, how I see success? I see it that every year I earn my age in dollars. When I'm 30, 30,000, 40, 40,000, 50, 50,000, so we go on. And who here would willingly go into a situation where at 30, 30,000, at 40, 15,000 and down? Very challenging. So instead, I think part of right livelihood is how do we measure it in being grateful? How do we measure it in being grateful for what we do? And in that gratitude, there is a reward so immense that money certainly can't buy it. So there we are. Phoenix Community Stores, for those people that are in business. You want a few hard facts and figures, I guess, being businesses. By the way, how many people are actually in business as opposed to the people that are actually in business, run businesses or... So here's something for your minds. So the Phoenix is independently owned. Findhorn Foundation is the major shareholder. We're trying to change that. We would hope that in 3-5 years that the business will be owned by the community, by the employees, hopefully by some of our suppliers, and by anyone that's interested in what we're doing and the plans that we have. We retail, we mail order, we manufacture. The bread and the biscuits you've been eating during this week is from our dear bakers here. We trade, we do some sourcing for the foundation, for the kitchens. So particularly around the organic side, we see that as part of what we do. And we encourage. I think part of our role as a business is to encourage. We encourage our suppliers all the time. In fact, they're probably sick and tired of us encouraging them. But that's part of what we do. And I think that our intention is always to say yes. Again, it makes Susan, the accountant's job, somewhat more difficult because I keep saying yes. But if someone comes to me with a product that they believe in and the product's right, we'll stock it. We'll try it. Part of our thing is to say yes. What do we trade? Food, pottery, crafts and gifts, books and music. What's interesting, and one of the things that gives me enormous satisfaction or gratitude or something that touches me, is that anyone that's used to Findhorn will know the turnover of people is enormous. Departments, people barely stay 6 months in one department or the other. One of the things about the Phoenix is most of the people have been there for 4 to 5 years. And I think that says something about the people, that each of those people, in their own way and for their own reasons, part of right livelihood is around commitment, to stay with it. It's often that we get these conflicts between the little I. I don't know if any of you have seen Bly's new book, The Sibling Society. It's a challenging book, I can tell you. But there it's this sort of murky area between emotions and spirituality. Very murky. And I think part of what right livelihood is there is a discipline in that. There's a commitment to that. There's a thing that this is my calling and I'm staying in it. Not staying in it stupidly, but staying in it as long as it needs to be so. So we've gone through some of the other details. Future directions. We'll have a table at the network thing this afternoon, wearing different hats. If anyone's interested in what the next stages are, we can talk about it. I think the only thing that we would say is that what's been interesting for us, a couple of years ago, if I'd been standing here, I was talking about we want Phoenixes in Aberdeen, Inverness, Edinburgh, Glasgow. Let's roll this one out. I no longer think that way. What is clear to me is that our role here is, instead of going this way, is to go this way. So instead, very much our plans are around farming, around food production, around really grounding a sustainable and holistic business here, because this is our home. And if other people want to set up other Phoenixes anywhere else, we'll give them all the help we can. Anyone wants to know, I run a Whole Food shop? Well, we'll try. It's our thing that part of our right livelihood is sharing the information that we have. And so our books are totally transparent. Anyone, you want any information, we're happy to give it to you. And that gets rid of the fear. Part of what it does is, of course, I have sleepless nights with a dear supermarket friend, but in the end, I know that essentially there's going to be 3 sorts of food shops. There's going to be supermarkets, there's going to be convenience stores, and there's going to be shops like us. Oh, we looked at the gratitude problems. Oops, no, wrong one. Oh dear. William last night, when he was advising me, knowing this was my first public talk, said, you're just going to have to go with it. However you plan it, go with it. So let's go with it. I think this is very simple for us. If we want world abundance shared, we have to live more simply. We have to pay significantly more for significantly less. And we have to choose quality. If we want ecological harmony, we've got to consume less and we've got to conserve more. If we want world peace, we have to develop non-aggression within ourselves. If we want equal rights, we overcome personal prejudices. If we want a world family, we put no restrictions on our love. How do we incorporate this into our business? With great difficulty. Believe me, with great difficulty. How do we, we're a shop. Our job is to sell things. So how do we marry that with people have to buy less? It's very tricky. And all of us will have those issues in our businesses. And there's no right or wrong. Do we buy pasta from a nice, it's a nice family pasta business in Edinburgh. We buy pasta from them. But they have no interest in organic. They have no interest in fair trade. They just like making pasta. They're Italians, and that's what they do. There's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful pasta company in Italy. It's organic, it's fair trade, it's a community farm. Food miles-wise, it's a disaster. Who would bring pasta all the way from Italy to here when we could buy it reasonably locally? And there's thousands and thousands of those conflicts that we all have, if we look at it with our minds. What I suggest is right livelihood is that what we go with is intention. Our intention is to do good. Our intention is to be fair. Our intention is to be just. And that the rest will sort itself out. And really, for my criteria and all this, I've abandoned the food mart. It's just, for me, I look at the business. I try wherever possible to get to know someone that runs a business. You'll see some letters down below from various companies that we deal with. And that's my intention. My intention is to do people that have the same intention as I do. In some way, in some form. And those I'll support. And if it costs us a little more, so be it. With all due respect, Richard, I'll just pick you up on one thing. And during your talk, you mentioned around the family business. Stays with the same supplier instead of looking for something cheaper. I would totally disagree with that. I'm proud that we support our local suppliers. I'm proud that we pay more, because it does cost more. The supermarket can bring in a product, direct to their distribution depot, and move it up to all of their supermarkets. We can't do that. We're not in the same trade. But the route when you pay 10p more for that whole food baked beans, you've also created another 3 jobs coming down the way. And I think that fair value, one of the earlier speakers talked about fair value. I think there is a fair value to products. I don't think that it should be inflated. I think that it should be fair. And a fair price includes things like the maximum number of people are employed, because otherwise we get agribusiness. When we take this extension, what we get is less and less work, more and more monotonous work, more and more drudgery. For me, I want to buy things that create employment. It's a very serious issue, not only in terms of any spiritual concept I may have, but if we just look at the numbers. Let's just look at the numbers. If we look at food, Tesco's, that's our largest supermarket in the UK, has a turnover of, I think, about 1.1 billion. BSE is going to cost us 2 billion. Common agricultural subsidies in the UK cost us around 2.4 billion. The cost of administering our social security, just the cost of administrating, not what we pay out, is around 8 billion. So when you look at the real cost, it's not what you pay at the checkout or what you pay, on the internet or have you. Look at the other figures that stack up behind it. Nothing is cheap in that sense. Everything has a cost. If it's selling below its fair value, it has a big cost, an unseen cost, but it has a cost. And usually the cost is to nature and it's to human beings. And we need to think about that every time we spend our money. Big dream. Oh, there's a big dream. I'm very confused. I'm just going to flash this up. I'd like to create a network of local bakeries. That's my dream. Have a program here. People come. They learn how to be bakers. They learn how to build bakeries. They make the bakery themselves. They learn how to mill flour, and then they go out into their communities. We create it, as a spiritual franchise. There's no franchise fees. People tithe instead of franchise. It's an inspiring thing for me. I don't know if it's going to go anywhere. But sometimes dreams and spirit has a habit of just taking it out. And somewhere in me, I feel this is mine. Just quickly, say we had 100 bakeries. What a difference this would make. Just 100 bakeries. 50% of all independent UK bakeries have closed down in the last 15 years. 50%. 80% of all bread sold in the UK is what's called slice and wrapped. Now, you don't need any horror stories about what that involves in human beings. These are no longer bakers. These are people doing a job. They are doing a baker's job, but they're not bakers. Now, of course, we can say very zen-wise, they can turn it into it. They can stand at that machine producing 10,000 loaves an hour with the noise and the heat and the smell. They can take that. They would be very advanced. You're talking Rishi Roshi level here. Now, this is mindness. This is people that have had so much at the end of the day that they go out and have 5 pints, or they go out and hit their wives, or they go out and have road rage on the road, or do whatever they do. Because no human being can work in those sort of conditions. And so every time we buy our bread, that's what we say. So I want to change that. I don't want to open lots of phoenixes. I want people to open real bakeries. So, ho ho. Yes. Solutions. I'm going to ask you all to consider something this morning. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Downstairs in the book fair, around the walls now, there are various letters. We just wrote to 10 or 12 of our suppliers. And we asked them to address a letter to you all. And just put out, what they do and why they do it as best they could. And as you'll see, the answers are from a few lines from somebody's personal assistant through to a very heartwarming, very inspiring place that they come from. What I'm going to ask each of you to do is to consider adopting one of those companies or a company like it. What I'm going to ask you to do is to consider as a part of your spiritual practice to say, I can't change everything. I can't cope with all of this. But one thing I could do, I could eat fair trade chocolate instead of a Mars bar. I could drink organic wine instead of non-organic wine, or I could eat Roken Farm ice cream instead of Haagen-Dazs. It's not a big step. But believe me, the step is enormous. You are going to spend 30 to 40 million pounds on food over the next 25 years for you and your family. That is an enormous business. When you think that the whole UK organic food industry is only worth 120 million, it's 0.003 almost of food sales in the UK. And it's better in America. All credit to Denmark. If you can, send a word of appreciation to the Danish government. They are doing an incredible job. They have, as an official government target, 20% organic food by the millennium. That is their celebration of the millennium. Is 20% of all food in Denmark will be organic. And wherever possible, will be grown and produced in Denmark. Fantastic. I only wish John Major, instead of taking off his jacket at his conferences, had the same sort of vision. So, as you go out, there's going to be these little intentions. I'm going to encourage you to think about it. You can go downstairs, you can look at some of the products. If you need to know any more, ask me. Or substitute your own. If you're in America, pick Stonyfield ice cream instead of Roken Farm. They're both good companies, or whatever. You know who it is. Make one change. And no one's going to know. We're not asking you to bring it back to the box or sign a list. This is up to you. This is up to you. Although we'll be carefully monitoring organic food sales in Europe. As an extra encouragement, along with every certificate, is a bar of organic fair trade chocolate from Green and Black's who are, again, one of the most marvelous companies you could. They may not be overtly spiritual, in terms of how they present themselves in the marketplace, but in terms of intention, wonderful. So they've sent you a bar of chocolate as their way of saying, thank you for hearing what we have to say. Now, I did have a slideshow. We could try it. Can we try it? I'll just keep flicking them until someone tells me to stop. So, oh yes. Sorry? No. So there we are. It's a community shop. There's one about community. Yes. Now, what will he buy today? Jeremy, are you here? No, I won't embarrass him. There's a typical customer of the Phoenix. Yes. But essentially, the reality in the consumer marketplace is women are more conscious than men. The reality in the marketplace is this age, this profile, this is our customer base. So, we'll take you around. So as you see, we highlight organic. We've thought about, how do you do it? Do we fill the walls with slogans? Do we sort of give everyone a note in their bag when they leave? I don't know. What we do now is our intention is to support local businesses, to support organic food businesses, and to support fair trade businesses. We will stock every organic and fair trade product in the UK market that we can get. That's our intention. And that's the rest, people buy what they like. We can't, well, from time to time, as community members may know, I may raise an eyebrow at what they're buying. Yes. They know that our intention is good. So we go on round. Helped to the same. Same thing with organic vegetables. It just goes on round. We offer choice, but we will, if there's an organic or an ecological alternative, we will offer it. This is a picture of the farm that we hope will be, not part of the Phoenix as a business, but part of the Phoenix spirit. They're a wonderful couple that live up here, Pam and Nick. They were going to be at the network thing this afternoon trying to raise money for the purchase of the farm. I'm going to be sitting there instead. I can give you some details. But they've been in organic farmers for 25 years. They're cheesemakers. They look after their hens. They have the skills. And believe me, the world will benefit from the work that they do. There we are. There's their sign. And there's a letter from Pam and Nick downstairs. There's Nick. So he's got a beard too, so. Bread comes from the bakery. You're all welcome. The bakers are there early in the morning, very early. They tell me tales that they're there at 2. I've never checked them out yet. But you're certainly welcome to go in there in the morning. You can buy some bread there, talk to them. They're dairy friendly. There they are, you see, you can tell. Natural cosmetics. Yes, here's the... I was going to spend longer on this, as you can probably tell. The same thing with magazines. Here's an interesting thing. I don't know what this is a comment on. We look at magazines. We sell around 4,500 Radio Times and about 120 Resurgences. Not a typical New Age shop by any means. Music for me is music. Music, these people expressing their soul. I'm not going to put a label whether this music or that music is spiritual or not. Books, we have a great selection. Unfortunately, we're not computerized, otherwise we'd send you all book lists, but it's in our minds. Organic clothing, vitally important. People put on a cotton t-shirt and think it's somehow natural. Cotton is one of the most unnatural agricultural processes you could ever think of. It comes out of slavery. It comes out of exploitation. the damage done to the rivers from the cotton die-offs, the bleaches that go into cotton, because people want nice white cotton shirts, is unbelievable. Organic cotton is a dairy there, and there's some wonderful fair trade organic cotton developments going on that are really worthy of support. I'm going to cut the slides, I think. Slides cut. I'm going to come to an end now. I'd like to finish. Oh, he's taking my book. No. I've run to my time. Thank you very much. My mother's letter. God, hope she doesn't see the video. What I'd like to do, and I realize this is slightly a setup, but we have the Phoenix team here. They're wonderful, and I would like some appreciation for what they're doing. They have to put up with me every day, so it's certainly some appreciation. I would like to finish with a poem. It's one of my favorites. It's by another old hippie, another bearded old, I think I'm thinking about bearded old hippies. Allen Ginsberg. Too much. Too much industry, too much eats, too much beer, too much cigarettes. Too much philosophy, too many thought forms. Not enough rooms, not enough trees. Too much police, too much computers. Too much hi-fi, too much pork. Too much coffee, too much smoking. Under slate grey roofs, too much obedience. Too many bellies, too many business suits. Too much paperwork, too many magazines. Too much industry, no fish in the rind. Lorelei poisoned, too much embarrassment. Too many fatigued workers on the train. Ghost Jews scream on the street corner. Too much old murder, too much white torture. Too much one Sternheim, too many happy Nazis. Too many crazy students, not enough farms. Not enough apple trees, not enough nut trees. Too much money, too many poor. Turks without vote, guests do the work. Too much metal, too much fat. Too many jokes, not enough meditation. Thank you very much.
What is this? A man that I love so much and challenges me so much. And we give him a standing ovation. David, that was, challenging. I always have this very strange way of saying thank you to you, because it's like, just what I love, I think most about you is just the level of your congruency, which is a word I still find it difficult to spell, and certainly to live up to. You are also, I don't know what you had planned, or whether you, because we've a lot of time. I mean, we've 20 minutes. So how do you want to spend it? How do we all want to spend it? But I'm sure that we would be happy to spend another 20 minutes with you, and with the theme of right livelihood and where we are and our current reality. So.
Okay, so yeah, I'm the one that needs the help.
Okay.
Go back to that.
What do you need help with? Put it back on?
Mm-hmm. No. Have I? No. I'm on. Right, fine. We're on. Let's roll.
Could you go back to that list of affirmations you had for yourself, that went all the I am list? I found that fascinating. It went by so quick.
Yeah.
But as a business person, I found a lot I could relate to, and I'd love to see that again. Thank you.
This. Read it out. Read it out, write it out. Oh, read it out. That saves us. Print it out. Oh, my goodness. Okay, let's see. I also had a list of things that were challenges. Maybe we could look at that too, and then... Say? Oh, I don't need it. Is that all on? Oh, whoops. Well, we'll start at the top, and then after a couple of minutes, we'll move it down. So, 25 drops of gratitude. I could probably write 25 things that drive me crazy, but let's start with the gratitude. I'm very grateful for doing the work that I do, and this is why. I don't know if anyone has any questions about it. I'm practicing my own right livelihood. I'm motivated by human values. I'm practically working with ecology. I'm co-working with fair trade. I'm inspired by learning. I'm living at Findhorn. I'm supporting quality food production. You can see some of these may feature on both lists, by the way. Yeah. I'm surrounded by nature. I'm allowed to take sabbaticals. Very, very important. You know, I'm grateful, and I just encourage that that's part of the rhythm. That every few years we just need to go into retreat space, and I'm grateful that I'm in a business where that is acknowledged as part of the rhythm and ritual of the business itself. I'm going to Osho and Karuna and Pune in a month as a exploration for myself. So the links sort of seem to carry on coming. I'm living in community and teamwork. I'm stimulated by the logistics of trading. I'm passionate about what I do. I'm interested in new people, concepts, and ideas. I'm living and working with tradition now and future. Very important. I'm very grateful for being in the whole food trade. You know, I know where it started. I was there at the beginning, and I have dreams about where it's going to. But it's a big enough industry that, you know, I can go to trade shows in America or Germany or here, and, you know, I know who's around. You know, there's part of that. I think part of that right livelihood is that there's support. You know, I can sit down with, you know, people in the industry, and we'll go on for hours about products and brands, and I'm not boring them. You know, I think it's important that we have within our businesses, you know, people that share that passion, because it can be a bit much for our, you know, wives or spouses or what have you. You know, so find those places where you can express your passion. I'm creating employment, as we said, crucial. Employment up here in this area of Scotland is diabolical. We're dependent on tourists now. Tourism is Scotland's largest business. It's very worrying, Braveheart has done a lot for Scottish tourism. The next film will take people somewhere else. I'm distributing wealth and ownership. As part of that, as we said, the intention is that the Phoenix will be owned by the community. We also have, if we've gone on the slides at the moment, since we started, we've run a discount card scheme long before those other characters. So people that shop with us regularly can buy a card and they get a discount and some privileges. What we're intending to do for our community, and I'm going to have to stand here and encourage them to go through this step, is to, instead of giving that discount to individual people, instead of giving them, originally we put in the 5%, as a way of trying to make organic food and fair trade products a little more affordable. If you look at food margins, we make 25% on food. Our labor costs are 12, our overheads are around 10, wastage is 2, we've got about 1 or 2% to play with. So we can't afford to maybe even have the discount cards in the first place. What we'd like to do is to make the discount cards a tithing into community. A tithing where we can use that money. At the moment, we give away around, probably this year, somewhere between £18,000 and £20,000 a year in discounts. Now, to the individual person at the till, it's not a lot. After January, you get a bit blasé about it. Say 20p here, 50. But together, it's a lot of money. 5 years is £100,000. That would get the farm project not only up and running, but it would buy some cows, it would buy some goats, it would buy some chickens. It's around, and then we can bring the price of the organic food down because it's made here. And so people in the long term will benefit far more by taking a long-term view. And they may leave the community between now and then, and that's around that 7 generations that we act now for our children and for their children's children and children's children. I'm in a resource center. That notice board outside the Phoenix, people coming in. It's great to just be a center. Again, it drives us mad. There's thousands of notices. Keep sorting them out. And when did they put it up? And when does it expire? But how wonderful. What a service that is. I'm being forever challenged. I'm grateful for that. Flexibility of life. Very, very important. It's like we work. If we create these 9 to 5, whoever works, individual rhythm that works like that. We all have different times when we're at our best, when biorhythms, I know what it is. But it's like I'm grateful that I'm in a business where to some extent I can work with those rhythms a bit. And if I want to go off and take a long lunch and then come back and work later, by and large, as long as we don't all do it at the same time, we can manage those things. I think part of creating human business is responding to those, not just in terms of job share on an economic level, but job share on a personal level. That how can we as business, because then as a business, you'll get the most out of your people, even if it's just a business decision. All of these things, it's around if human beings have so much, we all have so much to give. And yet so often, we put in structures that hold us down. I'm working in a human industry we went through. And I'm becoming more whole, well, vaguely. Physically nourished, yeah. I think another part of business, Karuna was talking about the ocean meditation. I'm grateful that I can go and unload vans and stock shelves. I think part of why I enjoy the job is I'm not stuck at a desk, or I'm not, that my body sometimes wants to move, and here's a chance. That's very important for me. I'm able to love my son. I'm glad that I can work in a shop where my son can come running in and jump on the counter, and it's fine. If I worked in boot, I couldn't do that. If I worked fire, it would be difficult. Here it is a totally accepted part of the process. And I'm very grateful for that. But, for me, I never really knew what my father did. Those of you that are, I'm not a devotee of Bly, but, I think one of the important things that came through in I and John was knowing what our parents do. That my father disappeared in the morning and came back in the evening, and I had no idea. And I think that we get this isolation that begins to be built into us from a very, and it's work. This thing called work takes my father from me. I don't know what that does to young. I'm not a psychologist or what have you, but I know in my own life that what happened. And then I was told, Daddy's gone to work. Or when he gets back from work, he'll hit you or discipline you or, do whatever he'll do. That thing. So work becomes caught up in this. I never want my son not to know what I do and where I do it and why I do it. And strange way, I'm growing younger. Well, inevitably, there are signs of the aging process in myself, in my heart and in my mind. I'm feeling younger and younger and younger. And what a marvelous thing that, in fact, age is not a reality. What a marvelous gift this is for our work. People spend a lot of time being afraid of getting old. And if we spend, 8 to 10 hours every day in our work, that's a big part of our lives. And then we work, and then we all know the story. You retire at 65 and you die, and then your spouse dies a few years later. What's that about? I am what I am, and I'm always encouraged here to be what I can be, as today might, why I was somewhat reluctantly took it on. I am grateful that I'm living in a community, I'm living in a team where there is always that. There is an acceptance of me, and there's always, and, have you thought about? Have you considered? No. I think perhaps what might be useful somewhere in here is a list of challenges that I find trying to run this sort of business. If I can find it, if I saw someone had written on one of the boards out there that might be something that people would like. Is there any more questions, by the way, while we hunt through to that? Challenges. Maybe let's just look at some challenges. Ho, ho, ho. I think the biggest one for me, it overrides everything, is that when I work for a cause, in terms of if I'm working from this place where I feel called to do something, how do I practice non-attachment to the results of that labor and that intention? This is just, for me, this is that judgment or that isolation, that separation, that we've got this cause, and I would anticipate most of them have got it. But if we're passionate about something, we just can't understand, not necessarily why the whole world doesn't listen, but at least our friends, at least people that we think are spiritual like us, and yet they exhibit patterns of behavior that are totally alien to us. Now, what is going on? There was a time when people wouldn't even invite me into their kitchens because they know, I'll be opening, opening their drawers and, go to the toilet and, what sort of toilet cleaner's down there? It was terrible. So I'm glad I'm getting a little more relaxed about this. And that's around intention. Intention is the thing that takes the judgment away. Intention is what I believe almost creates grace. And I slip from time to time, but that's how to deal with complexity of intentions and work gracefully with the conflicts. We've got one there. I spent my whole life in the organic whole food business, and I come here and I'm selling Mars bars. I'm out. I wouldn't even sell eggs. We had one of the largest natural food stores in North America, and at the time we wouldn't sell eggs. Now that was a bit misguided, I would appreciate now. But I want the Phoenix to be a place where everybody feels okay. And if people, and if it takes Mars bars or Coca-Cola, whatever it takes, fine. I hope, my intention is that in 5 years, we won't have to do that. But as a business, we need the money. And as a community store, we need to reflect our community. And, our community is also around, we have a caravan park where visitors come. We can't dictate to them what food they like or don't like. We can just offer them the choice. And through that choice, it is unbelievable. You watch the people as they come through the week. They start off buying the things that they recognize from where they come from. By the end of the week, they're eating, fresh organic bread that they'd never have dreamt of before. Great work. If we become poor, how do we support quality products that are expensive? The Findhorn nightmare. Oh my God. It's too expensive. If I hear that 500 times a day, I hear it 1,000 times a day. If it's genuinely too expensive, if someone's ripping something off, fine, I agree with that. Fair value, it's around trust. It's around creating our own reality. If we want to create a world that's fair and peaceful and nourishing, how do we create it? We've gone through. We make 50% of the buying decisions. Hey, what's expensive? And we've looked at what are the costs. But it's hard. It is really hard. And I think that's why, that if we just take one product or one little area, candles, people put candles on their altar. Usually they're made from petroleum. They've got artificial dyes in them, artificial colors. You put that on your altar. Change that. You light incense, to create a feeling of spirit. Have you ever seen some of those incense factories in India? You would be appalled. No fair trade there, no great spirit there. This is slave labor. And we here, we wave it around and, this must be spiritual. I've lit my candle and lit the incense. If there's that, and sure, until we know, that's fine. But once we know, we have to take responsibility for that. I think that's part of what Spirit is asking us to do. Conflict of time. We've all got this one. People are starving. World's oppression. And I just want to go and sit in the corner and have a cup of hot cocoa. We've all got it, Again, I think it's back to intention. I can't possibly change the world today, tomorrow, whatever time. And I have to appreciate that I am very human, And in fact, for me, I have a slightly different situation from you all in that I've always had right livelihood with my own. My mess is going home. That's where my challenge is. It's like the right life has almost been taken care of, that there was a gift there that came into my life and said, this is what you can do. No one did that with my human life. So we all deal with it the best that we can. How do you choose? Do you support Amnesty? Do you support Greenpeace? Go with your heart, But as businesses, we've often got those choices. We have a very wonderful local Whole Foods supplier. Now, do we support them and pay more? Or do we go down to London and, ship up the pallets? Those choices are with us all the time, because if we buy from our local supplier and our customers come in and say it's too expensive, we haven't got time at the till to say, well, why it costs 2p more? Because, there's 15 people in Inverness that are really trying to do a good job and we support them, and that's why you're going to pay 2p more. We don't have that sort of time. And as a business, of course, we're dependent on turnover. If we're going to create our own jobs here, if we're going to move along, we have to take care in part of ourselves, but not solely and exclusively. And I think that if we were to cut out that point, and that's often what happens as you get bigger. As you get bigger, you can buy better, or you can deal better, or what have you, and you can leave your old suppliers and your old things behind. Much more interesting is how can we all grow together? Inner conflicts have been emotions, adult spirituality. Hey, Bill got them. It's like, I know I should eat organic food, but Mars bars taste so much better. There's no organic chocolate that can touch them. I agree. Absolutely right. But I think there's an enormous step in going beyond that little I and going into the big I. And in fact, after a while, probably think, how did I ever eat those disgusting things? But anyway. Issues of business and spiritual community. Business is not spiritual. There's a lot of stuff in this community around business. For a lot of people, business is male, it's authority, it's hierarchy. I'm male. I can be a bit bossy at times. I understand where they get it from. But it's difficult. It's a whole, as most of you are not dealing with those issues, we won't spend some time, but it's a fascinating story. Short-term costs. We have an achievement every Tuesday morning for our Phoenix team. That costs us about £50,000 a year. Now, £50,000 to the Swedish bus company is not a lot. To us, it's 5% of our turnover. It's an enormous cost. Just in money, it's an enormous cost. And yet, we have to pay it. We couldn't run our business any other way. And, it's around trust, but it is there very much so that a lot of the things that we as businesses would choose to do at the beginning are going to take some investment. And we just have to go with what our hearts feel are necessary in the business to really make it. It's like if I was God, would I be proud of my business? And not in a judgmental sense, but in, a sense of a smile or an appreciate. Imagine that God coming down and hugging you and saying, well done. Well done, I'm very pleased with your business. What a wonderful feeling this would be. And I think unless we can get to those heart qualities, but that is how we see our business, then keep going. Community wealth. I think business has to be involved with creating community wealth. What we're seeing particularly, for the British, it's new. We're seeing our education system collapse. We're seeing our health system collapse. We're seeing our pension systems collapse. Individuals by themselves are going to have a very tough time. There's, unless we're talking stupid money, for most people, there's serious issues coming up. There's serious issues if they get sick. There's serious issues when they retire. And if I'm working in a spiritual business on $10,000 a year, forget about pension plans. But as communities, we can take care of each other. So I think that for us as businesses, as a path of service, it's around how can we create community wealth? How can we network with other businesses to take care of the communities in which we're in? There's a whole talk there. And the conflict between the rational mind and the trust in spirit. Ho, ho. It comes up all the time, Again, it's around intention. Because there's not a place that we can judge this. It's around heart. Heart, heart, heart. So there is. Thank you.
What I'd love to do now is to take the 2 minutes that we have left, rather than pass the mic around and ask more questions and have more input, is just to spend just 2 minutes in silence, in quiet, inside ourselves, just contemplating what intention we have when we leave this hall. And as you go out, there are apparently sheets of paper at the door, these intentions. If you want to pick up a sheet, you want to go down and look and reflect on it over lunch or whatever, or talk to David at the networking fair, then do that. So I think when that's what I would like to do rather than take questions. So should we just take a couple of moments just to reflect on our own lives and where we are in terms of our own commitment and intention? as a way of closing, I would like to just leave with the quotation from Margaret Mead that just dropped in. Never doubt that a small group of individuals can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever did. Have a good lunch.